November 13, 2022. Four college students found brutally murdered inside their off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. No forced entry. No signs of robbery. Just silence and horror. The victims, young, full of life, living what should have been ordinary student days, were attacked as they slept. For weeks, the town lived in fear. Who could do this? Why that house? Then, police revealed their suspect. Not a stranger with no connection, but a PhD criminology student who studied the psychology of killers, and may have decided to become one. This is the story of the Idaho College murders, the case that shook America and still haunts investigators today. Moscow, Idaho, a quiet college town surrounded by rolling hills and farmland. With just 25,000 people, it was the kind of place where families felt safe and students lived freely. Crime was rare. Violence, almost unheard of. At the center of this small community stood the University of Idaho, buzzing with youthful energy. Among its students were four friends who shared an off-campus house on King Road. Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves were inseparable best friends since childhood, blonde, bright, and full of life. They were seniors, planning their futures, celebrating one last semester together. Xana Kernodle, fun-loving and spirited, lived in the house as well. That night, her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, a cheerful, athletic freshman, stayed over. For young lives, just beginning, all under one roof. The house itself was known among students. A three-story rental tucked on a hill, with sliding doors, a deck, and big windows. A typical college party house, where friends gathered, music played, and laughter filled the night. But the house had vulnerabilities. It sat partly hidden in the woods, with multiple entrances, and no one ever locked the doors. People came and went without notice. To the students, it was normal. To an outsider, it was opportunity. On the night of November 12, 2022, everything seemed ordinary. Madison and Kaylee went to a bar downtown, smiling in surveillance footage. Ethan and Xana attended a fraternity party nearby. By 1:45 a.m., all four had returned home. Upstairs lights flicked on. Downstairs, two other roommates slept. What happened next would turn Moscow into a town of fear, because by morning, four young students would be dead. And the investigation would uncover one of the most chilling suspects in modern true crime history. Morning came on November 13, 2022. At the King Road house, everything looked quiet from the outside. Cars in the driveway. Curtains drawn. To the neighbors, it seemed like just another Sunday in Moscow. But inside, it was something else entirely. Around 11:58 a.m., a 911 call came from one of the surviving roommates' phones. The call was vague, panicked, reporting someone unconscious on the second floor. Police rushed to the scene. When officers stepped inside, they were met with silence, and then horror. On the second and third floors of the house, they discovered the bodies of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Each one had been brutally stabbed in their sleep. Some showed signs they had fought back in their final moments. There was no sign of forced entry, no broken glass, no evidence of robbery. Phones, wallets, laptops, all untouched. The killer had slipped in and out, leaving behind only terror. The crime scene, detectives would later say, was one of the most disturbing they had ever witnessed. So gruesome that many details remain sealed to this day. Two roommates on the ground floor survived unharmed. They told police they heard noises in the night, footsteps, maybe a door closing. One even opened her bedroom door and saw a masked man dressed in black, tall with bushy eyebrows, walking toward the sliding door. She froze. He left. She locked her door. Hours later, the house fell silent again. Forensic teams flooded the scene. Yellow tape sealed off the entire block. News cameras swarmed. Parents sobbed as investigators worked behind tarps. The question spread instantly: who could have done this? The brutality, the precision, the silence. This was no ordinary murder. This was calculated. And soon, the clues would point to someone no one expected. A criminology PhD student who studied the minds of killers. From the very beginning, detectives knew this was no ordinary murder scene. Whoever entered that house on King Road knew exactly what they were doing, and left behind almost nothing. But almost nothing was still something. As forensic teams swept through the rooms, one item stood out: a tan leather knife sheath found next to Madison Mogen's body. On the snap of the sheath, investigators discovered a single trace of DNA. It didn't match any of the victims, or anyone in the house. It belonged to someone else. That was the first crack in the case. Meanwhile, surveillance cameras from nearby homes and businesses began to reveal something strange. In the early morning hours, between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., a white Hyundai Elantra was seen circling the neighborhood multiple times, headlights off at points, moving slowly, as if searching. Then, shortly after 4 a.m., the car sped away from the King Road house. Police issued a nationwide search for that exact make and model. At the same time, digital forensics came into play. Cell tower data showed a phone linked to a Washington State University PhD student, Bryan Kohberger, pinging repeatedly near the victim's home in the weeks leading up to the murders. He had been there at least 12 times before the attack. The night of the killings, his phone went dark, powered off, but reappeared hours later as he drove back toward his campus. Bit by bit, the puzzle started to form. Investigators dug deeper into Kohberger's background. He wasn't just any student, he was studying criminology, the science of crime itself. He had written research papers on criminal behavior. He had even asked ex-convicts online to describe how they chose their victims and carried out attacks. And then came the final breakthrough. Police secretly collected DNA from Bryan Kohberger's parents' home in Pennsylvania. The results matched the unknown profile on the knife sheath. Statistically, the probability of that DNA belonging to anyone else was almost zero. With the DNA match, the car footage, and the cell phone records, detectives had enough to act. In December 2022, in a dramatic late-night raid, Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' house, thousands of miles away from Idaho. But even with the arrest, questions only grew. Why these victims? Why this house? And what drove a criminology student, a man who studied killers, to allegedly become one himself? The arrest of Bryan Kohberger shocked the world. A 28-year-old criminology PhD student, a man who studied the minds of killers, now accused of being one himself. But why? What was the motive? To this day, no one has a clear answer. And that's why the theories keep coming. Some believe Kohberger specifically targeted one or more of the victims. Court documents revealed his phone had pinged near the King Road house dozens of times in the months before the murders, often late at night. Was he watching the house, studying their routines? Some think he may have developed an obsession with one of the young women, maybe someone he had seen on campus, at a bar, or even online. The brutality of the stabbings suggested rage, not randomness. If true, this wasn't a chance attack. It was premeditated. Others point to Kohberger's academic background. He wasn't just a student, he was passionate about criminology. He had even conducted research, asking criminals about how they planned their crimes, how they felt afterward, and what mistakes they made. Some theorists believe Kohberger wanted to test himself, to carry out the perfect crime he had studied for years. The precision of the attack, the lack of evidence left behind, and the way he seemed to vanish into the night, it all hinted at someone who thought he was smarter than investigators. But if that was his goal, his arrogance may have been his downfall. Another possibility is that the murders weren't targeted at all, that Kohberger simply chose a vulnerable house full of students. The King Road house was known for being a party spot, doors often unlocked, people coming and going. Maybe it wasn't about who was inside, but simply about opportunity. A chance to kill multiple victims quickly and disappear. But if that's true, why return to the area again and again before the crime? Why stalk the house? Some online communities have speculated there may have been more than one person involved. The crime scene was chaotic. 4 victims, multiple floors. Could a single attacker really move so quickly, so silently, without alerting the entire house? Investigators have never supported this theory, but it continues to spread because so many details remain sealed. And then there's the simplest and most terrifying possibility. That Bryan Kohberger acted for reasons no one will ever fully understand. A hidden darkness, a need for control, or power, or the thrill of killing. Sometimes, the scariest motive is no motive at all. As the trial approaches, prosecutors argue the evidence is undeniable. The DNA, the car, the phone records. But defense lawyers insist there's more to the story, and that the real truth may never be revealed. For the families of Madison, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, the question burns every single day. Why? Why them? Why that night? Why this crime? And until those answers come, the Idaho College murders will remain not just a case about evidence, but about mystery, obsession, and the chilling possibility that evil can hide behind even the most ordinary face. The murders of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin didn't just shake Moscow, Idaho, they shattered it. A college town built on laughter, football games, and quiet streets suddenly became the epicenter of fear. Parents who once felt safe sending their children to the University of Idaho now wondered if a killer was still roaming free. Students carried mace, walked in groups, and locked their doors at night. For weeks, the campus felt like a ghost town. The families were broken. Kaylee's parents demanded answers at every press conference, holding back tears but refusing to stay silent. Ethan's siblings spoke of his kindness, his humor, and how he'd been taken far too soon. Madison and Xana's loved ones held vigils, clutching candles in the winter air, struggling to believe their children were gone. For weeks after the murders, fear spread across America and the UK. Headlines ran daily. 4 students slain in Idaho mystery. TV networks replayed drone footage of the King Road house, its windows covered with plastic tarps. Speculation ran wild. Some believed a serial killer was at large. Others thought the crime would never be solved. And then, the arrest of Bryan Kohberger in December 2022 brought a moment of relief, and a new wave of horror. A criminology student, a man who studied killers, a man who lived just 15 minutes away. Suddenly, the story was no longer about a faceless predator. It was about someone who had been hiding in plain sight. But even with the arrest, closure never came. Court proceedings dragged on. Evidence was debated. Theories spread online. For every headline that promised justice, there was another that reopened old wounds. The secrecy of the investigation, the withheld details of the crime scene, left room for endless speculation. The King Road house itself became a symbol of grief. Students avoided it. Tourists came to stare. Reporters camped outside. Eventually, the University of Idaho announced the house would be demolished, hoping to erase the constant reminder of what had happened there. But for the families, no demolition could erase the pain. And for the world, the case became more than a tragedy, it became an obsession. Podcasts, documentaries, endless YouTube videos dissected every detail. The public wanted answers. The families wanted justice. And investigators wanted to prove they had caught the right man. But as the trial looms, one truth remains. For 4 young lives, full of promise and light, the story ended too soon. And for the rest of us, the haunting question remains. Why? Why them? Why that house? Why a crime so brutal, so senseless, that even with all the evidence, it still feels impossible to understand? Because the aftermath of the Idaho murders is not just about justice. It's about grief, fear, and the chilling reminder that sometimes evil doesn't hide in shadows. Sometimes, it studies with us, smiles with us, and lives right next door. For college students, a quiet town, a house on King Road that became the scene of unthinkable horror. The evidence points to Bryan Kohberger, the DNA, the car, the phone records. But even with an arrest, the biggest questions remain unanswered. Why that house? Why those victims? And why would a man studying the minds of killers decide to allegedly become one himself? The trial may reveal some answers, or it may leave us with even more mystery. For the families, justice can never bring their children back. For the rest of us, the case is a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always come from strangers in the dark. Sometimes, it hides in plain sight, behind an ordinary face, a smile, or even a college classroom. So what do you believe? Was this obsession, opportunity, or something far more sinister? Drop your theory in the comments, because the conversation about this case is far from over. And if this story shook you, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, share this video, and join us as we uncover more mysteries that demand answers. Because sometimes the scariest question isn't who did it, but why. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice keeps these stories alive.